Good morning, everyone. I wanted to take a moment to just give a little word about the COVID-19 pandemic and kind of offer an apology as well. It's been pointing out to me that as I've talked about the pandemic, that from time to time, it's probably been a very few amount of times, but from time to time I've said something like this so-called pandemic. And so I really need to give a correction to that. Things change and we have a better understanding, but I also know what I meant when I said that, and I never explained that to all of you and to our church family. And I want to be sensitive to those of us who have gone through a lot of grief because of it or death of loved ones. And I said so-called. What I meant was that what I did not mean was that I did not believe that the pandemic did not exist, that COVID does not exist. It's not honest to deny that reality. Of course it does. It would be like someone denying that the earth is round. The idea of a pandemic is something that starts as an epidemic somewhere and then spreads all over the place, as in now affecting every country and every corner of the globe. So in that sense, yes, it is a pandemic. It's affecting all people everywhere in the world and all countries. And so I apologize if that, forgive me for making it sound like I didn't believe that were the case. We make mistakes. And I probably made some of you believe that the COVID virus was not serious, real, or deadly. I did not mean to minimize or demean the deaths that have occurred or complications that have resulted from COVID in people's lives. Yes, it is a pandemic. Now, a word of clarification. Is it dangerous? Yes. Especially for those who are at high risk or have various health issues. Is it dangerous? Yes, for those people. No, it is not for children, for youth, for the general population who are actually healthy. There are some people who seem to be healthy but have some health problems, whether known or unknown, and have died from COVID or from other complications. And as a shepherd and a pastor, and as our church together, the question is should you fear COVID-19? Well, let me ask, should you fear death in general? Depends on if you're a Christian or not. Should you fear the flu? Should you fear cancer? Should you fear heart disease, starvation, traveling, getting in a plane or a car, public transportation? All of these depends upon you and your place in the world and where you live and what you believe. Let me just point out that today's world population is estimated about 7 billion people, 7.8 billion people. That's a lot of people. We can be thankful to God that COVID-19 is nothing like the bubonic plague of the 1300s, where an estimated 1/3 of Europe's population died. That's over 30%. So then looking out across our congregation, or you looking at your family, and 1 in every 3 persons would no longer be here because of the Black Death or the bubonic plague. And so far, the COVID virus is not like the lesser death rate of the Spanish flu of 1918. With a world population of around 1.8 billion at the time, 100 years ago, the estimates of death range, it's a pretty big estimate, no one's really sure, between 20 million and 50 million people passing away. This means potentially 1 to 3% of the world's population would have died. So whereas in Europe, 1/3 of the people died, that is huge. And then 100 years ago, 1 to 3% of the world's population would have died. That's huge as well. I would like to say that any death is tragic, is sad, but perhaps this perspective helps. So far this year, 11 months, we're in December now, do you know the highest natural killer annually? Because we're talking about COVID and putting it in perspective and not being fearful people, but being a people who look to God, who understand what's going on, trying to understand what's going on, being careful of those around us, wearing our masks, and encouraging others to care for each other and not be careless. My question is with our current world population of 7.8 billion people, do you know what the highest natural killer is naturally? Sorry, that was redundant. What is the number one thing that kills people here in our age, in our world? If you guessed heart disease, then you would be correct. Over 17 million is estimated annually that die from some form of heart disease or heart attack or heart-related issue. Do you know the highest natural killer annually, the highest unnatural killer annually? And in fact, what is the biggest killer of life on earth? Do you know? That is abortion. Worldwide abortions this year so far are 39 million abortions. This is a true epidemic. And remember, below that, the next highest death rate is cardiovascular disease at 17 million. Now, where did we say COVID deaths were? I didn't give that yet. COVID deaths are 1.3 million. That's a lot. 1.53 million deaths, that's a lot. And so that's something to be praying about, something to be seeking the Lord about, something to be caring about with others. But in perspective, cancer death rates, 7 to 8 million. Stroke death rates, 6 million. Deaths caused by smoking, 4.6 million. This is annually. Deaths caused by alcohol, 2.3 million. Deaths caused by road traffic deaths, 1.25 million. Deaths by suicide, just under 1 million this year. That's still a lot. Death by murder, over 400,000 annually worldwide. And so COVID is just above road traffic deaths, but below alcohol smoking, strokes, cancer, cardiovascular disease, and the whopping 39 million abortions that have been performed thus far this year. So, this is why we are commissioned to share the life-giving gospel of Jesus Christ to the world around us. So, forgive me for using the word so-called pandemic. I will not be doing that. COVID-19 truly is a true pandemic. I can encourage you with the fact, though, that death rate is extremely low worldwide compared to the bubonic plague and compared to all these other deaths rates that I've mentioned. COVID death rate so far worldwide is 0.0019%. That's less than 0.2%. I'm not trying to minimize the death of 1,530 million people. Excuse me, 1,530,000 people. Just trying to give perspective. Cherish life. Cherish your family. Cherish your friends, your church family. Cherish people around you. Come to Jesus Christ to remedy your sin and condemnation by God for breaking His standards. And especially now in this Christmas season, share the reason of Christ, that Jesus is the reason for the season, for His life, His death, and what He has done for you and I, so that we could be free and saved from our sins, from even the ravages of COVID-19 or any of these other potential ways of death. So that is my sincere apology and also my perspective to encourage you that although COVID is extremely real and it is a pandemic, thankfully it is not as lethal as maybe what is being purported out there. Yes, 1.5 million deaths are tragic and they are sad and they have touched many of us, and we know people or people in your family who have passed from COVID. But we can be grateful that it is not substantially worse. like even the Spanish flu or especially something like the bubonic plague. Thank you.